Welcome to Culture Before Content. Culture Before Content, from Music for All and presented by Yamaha. And now, here's your host, David Duarte.
Hey, welcome to the show here on the Music for All Podcast Network. We're so happy that you decided to join us today. We are honored to have Yamaha as our national presenting sponsor. Yamaha's dedication to music education and its support of this podcast allows us to bring these important conversations directly to you. As stated in the intro, I am David Duarte, your host here on Culture Before Content, where we are dedicated to the belief that building a strong culture is at the heart of everything we do. And it's so fun to talk about. Through the experiences and insights of our guests, we examine how intentional culture shapes meaningful connections and supports all the work we all do in the classroom, day in and day out. So at Music for All and within the Culture Before Content community, our mission is to create, provide, and expand positively life-changing experiences through music. This podcast just isn't about sharing ideas. It's a space for meaningful conversations, practical strategies, and fresh perspectives to help you shape the culture in your band room. Today's going to be a good one. Just going to throw that out there. All right. Each episode brings together educators and leaders sharing insights, experiences, and practical tools to inspire fresh ideas. Whether you're just starting or looking to evolve and adapt, these conversations we're hoping to help you personally and professionally. And I'm thrilled to keep learning along with you because I get free professional development as well. All right. Well, thanks for tuning in. If you're joining us live, this is a great chance to be a part of the conversation. I know I saw some conversations already starting, so this should be kind of exciting today. So connect with us in real time, share your thoughts. You can do it both on YouTube and Facebook and engage with us here in the community. And if you're catching the replay, you can watch the full video on Facebook or YouTube anytime, which is perfect for revisiting key moments or exploring the conversation at your own pace. But would you prefer to listen instead? Audio episodes are available every Monday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and other major platforms. It is the perfect way to stay connected, whether you're commuting, reviewing scores for rehearsal, or tuning all of those lovely instruments, or planning sectionals. You never know what you do. Well, you can always visit us at musicforall.org/podcast for all of the details. And we are so excited to have you with us. All right. Let's talk a little bit about last week. Last week was great. It was a fellow podcaster. We had Kyle Smith. I enjoyed chatting with Kyle. He's the director of bands at Westbrook High School in Maine and the host of the Growing Band Director podcast. You should check it out. Kyle brought incredible energy to the conversation, sharing his passion for building a strong band culture and focusing on student-centered learning and leadership. He talked about how important relationships are in our work and how his podcast has become his go-to resource for all of us band directors looking to grow. I go to it all the time. We dove into everything from repertoire and pedagogy to why festivals should focus more on growth and competition. That's always seemed to be a hot topic, all the hot topics. What stuck with me most was Kyle's perspective on creating safe, collaborative environments and encouraging reflection as part of excellent teaching. It was such a refreshing and inspirational conversation. And if you're on Facebook, I look for the Growing Band Director podcast and be a part of it. All right. This week, we have we have more than one guest this week. I love it when we have multiple guests because then there's like three of us. Then we have from Stewarts Creek High School in Smyrna, Tennessee, we have Debbie Burton and Michael Chester, who were recently invited to represent Tennessee in the presidential inaugural parade. Think about this for just a second. The band overcame schedule changes with persistence, raising in a very short amount of time. They'll tell us when they started raising money, $120,000 through community support, corporate sponsors, and student-led events, ensuring every student proudly represented Tennessee, despite having the event brought indoors, which I know was sad, but also cold. These efforts highlight the power of collaboration and a shared vision of making ambitious dreams a reality and building something extraordinary that starts with culture that unites the community around a shared purpose. So speaking of shared purpose, please welcome to the show, Debbie Burton and Michael Chester from Stewarts Creek High School. Hey, welcome.
Hello.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
It is going so good. You know what? We'll just start right away. So, geez, what's it been? A week? It hasn't been very long since you guys have. So, why don't you tell us? Why don't you start? Let's just start with the story. So, you got invited to the presidential inaugural parade. And maybe talk about when that happened, because I understand it was a short amount of time. And then both talk about what how you got there and maybe a little bit about the experience, and we'll take the conversation from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So probably about 2 weeks before our Thanksgiving break, We kind of, we'd met several of our band director friends for dinner, and, we were kind of talking about the bands that were in Macy's and bands that were in the Tournament of Roses parade. And, we were wondering, had anybody heard about any of the bands that were selected for the inaugural parade? Never in a million years thinking like, yeah, that's definitely something we should do. Like, let's just do that. Why not? But as we started thinking about it, we kept, I think it was Michael Jordan, so please don't misquote me, but you miss 1,000 shots you don't take. And so, we kind of talked it over, and we agreed that, it wouldn't hurt to apply, thinking like, okay, we don't have anything to lose. And, when we both, were in agreement with it, we brought it to our principal, Dr. Clark Harrell, and, he and the administration were 100% behind it from the very beginning, and so at this point now it's about 2 weeks before Thanksgiving break. Now we're scrambling to go, okay, where do we even begin? And so for us, part of the issue was just trying to find the application. You had to do some deep Googling to just find the application, because it's not something that, they email out, or that you look at your local state MEA website, anybody wanting to apply, here's the link or whatever. But we did find it, and, we kind of began the application process. And so a lot of that process for us was, having a narrative about the band program. We uploaded some content of our halftime shows as an example of some things. The video requirement was 2 minutes. Like, if it was over 1 minute, you were thrown out, you're tossed out, your application is rejected. But the big one for us was the letters of endorsement. And that for us was a big one. In Tennessee, prior, the last high school band that we were aware of that had played in the presidential inaugural was actually Dobbins Bennett. And I think most of us in the Music for All network all know, the work that Leif Cook and his team are doing, just some incredible work, across our state. And, they were the last band that, that we were aware that had applied and had done the parade. So we started with a pretty aggressive campaign of getting letters. So we reached out to our local representative, our from the Tennessee House, Mike Sparks, our county commissioner for the Rutherford County, Phil Wilson, and Senator Don White, along with our mayor, the town of Smyrna, Mary Esther Reed. And through that network of our local elected leaders, kind of got letters of endorsement from our senators, Bill Haggerty, Representative Scott DesJarlais in the U.S. House of Representatives. And so we were really, really fortunate to have a pretty strong application for that part of it. Mm-hmm. And then the crazy part happened. I'm going to let Debbie kind of talk about what happens when we try to put all this application together.
So I'll back up to the application itself just for a second, though. Because when we first said, yeah, let's apply, and it's 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, I'm thinking like we may have even missed the application window at that point. We're like not sure how this happened, the time frame. And so 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, the application process hadn't even officially opened up yet.
Oh, goodness.
And it closed. It was like maybe a 10-day window, and it closed on December 3rd was when you had to have all your materials in. So knowing that it was December 3rd was the closing, that's right. For us, it was right after Thanksgiving break. We're like, okay, great. We could collect all the materials and take Thanksgiving break to submit everything. Except that our school system had a little issue.
We'll call it a network interruption.
There we go. In that all Wi-Fi, all Microsoft OneDrive,
all
email, everything shut down for us the week of Thanksgiving.
Oh, goodness.
And we had used the school email as the contact for our application. We had used the school email for everyone to submit letters to us. And so then it became like an oh my goodness moment of how we got to contact all these people. We've got to redo our initial application to change it to our Gmail email. And it was a little bit of a panic there through Thanksgiving break about can we get, and like some of our assets that we wanted to use in the application were on our OneDrive and we couldn't get to those. We had some things backed up in a Dropbox, thank goodness, because that's what some of the things we ended up using. but it was a little bit of panic just to even submit the application. But we did. It was great. Michael put together a great press release for us. Oh, some pictures there. That's awesome. Put together a great press release for us and submitted all our applications. And then they're very clear, like make sure that the person applying is monitoring emails through the holidays. And we're like, well, okay, December 3rd, maybe 2 weeks, maybe we'll find out before school is out.
Yeah, we were really hoping that we'd find out before school, just so we could, one way or another, we would either know. And if we had gotten, the bid to do it, the acceptance, we could tell all of our kids before we left for Midwest. But that didn't actually happen.
That didn't happen.
So then we kind of like, okay, so now we're at Midwest and, going through the conference and, enjoying the conference, so many great bands, so many great people, just constantly like on the phone, just trying to
check an email,
nothing. So, we get back on that Saturday, and of course anyone, it's kind of getting ready for the holidays, we're getting ready to visit parents and, get packed up from one trip, get ready for another. And it wasn't until that Sunday night, I had not even thought to check email because I was just, I was very tired. And so I was kind of like, okay, the most I can do is get to my couch and fall asleep. But for whatever reason, I ended up checking our band Gmail, which forwards to all of our school emails. Except for some reason, some of these emails were not forwarding. So anyway, I checked the band Gmail, realized that we had gotten the acceptance email and was just kind of like, okay, I'm going to fall back asleep. And then it was like, it's kind of like, in Home Alone when she finds out that like they left Kevin back at home. It was like, we're in. Okay. So
okay.
we yeah.
So this is where my brain is going right now. So, okay.
Yeah.
I've been a band director for a little while. And so, trips, great, awesome. But here we are in late December, and you now realize that you have to plan a trip and raise all the funds all the way to Washington, D.C. from Tennessee with less than a month ago. Less than a month. Yep. So here we are, culture before content. And, like I say, I believe that culture is what drives us, and we all just teach music for funsies. The culture of your band, we'll get on to some of these topics over time, but, the culture that must be in place to produce a band of what you guys have. And for those of you not out there, always say, check out bands across the nation. It's fun to listen to bands. And, I used to live in Nashville, so it's kind of great that I know your program well. But then having a band program, but the amount of community, student support, parent support that it must have taken, that's where my brain's going right now. So now, and I know the answer is $120,000. So how did you get $120,000 in less than a month? On your marks, get set, go.
Well, I was going to say, that's such a loaded question because you really think about the advocacy part of it, and I think, for those that may not know, so our school is only in its 12th year. This is our 12th school year. We were established in 2013. I was very lucky to be here, finishing graduate school at the University of Illinois. And I've been here ever since we opened the school. We're very fortunate that Debbie was able to join us 2 years later. And in that time period, the groundwork for something like this started then. We were very fortunate that we have a very close-knit community where we try to do things where we invite our members of our school board and we invite members to the town council to our concerts. And, a lot of them will come to football games. So, that groundwork that we try to establish is the relationship building. Because, we've always kind of had the dream of like, especially when I was at Illinois, it was amazing how so many people in the community knew about, the Marching Illini, and they knew about the Illinois band program and the tradition of that band program. And, when this job came open, to come here to Smyrna, Tennessee, which again, for those of you that don't know, it's kind of in between Nashville and Murfreesboro. So it's about 15 minutes away from Nashville. It's a suburban community. They have a great high school with Smyrna High School that's been the town school for at least since the the late 1800s, I believe. So we are now the second high school, kind of in this town, in this suburban district, and it was one of those things of just seeing how much pride a community could get with a band program, which you don't think about sometimes. And so that was just kind of laying the groundwork for those opportunities to make all of those people in our town feel welcome and invited. Acknowledgements in our concert programs to all of our elected leaders and to our school board members. And so with that, that same part too, with our parent culture and our student culture, we were, from the very beginning, we wanted to set up a program that allowed our students to not just experience band, but to experience all the fine arts, because, as we know, especially now more than ever, music and the arts really is a positive outlet for our students. And especially after the pandemic, it's something that we've been very fortunate enough to be able to have the support of our administration, who's been with us from day one, and a very supportive, colleagues in our Fine Arts Academy. And like I said, that advocacy piece started 12 years ago. So fast forward to today, when it was time for us to come together to try to say, okay, could we even do this? Can you raise $120,000 in less than 3 weeks? I mean, who does that? We felt very confident, about 99% confident that, our community would support us. And not only have they supported us, but it's been beyond support. I mean, It's so many leaders in our churches, in our businesses, and just, random people just in our town, donating, giving us words of encouragement, and something like that changes for the students, because it's like now all of a sudden when we made the announcement, something changed in the students, and it was, I don't know, it was different. They carried themselves a little bit differently, they knew that it was serious, because now all of a sudden the town was getting behind them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, David.
I was going to say also, just because, again, you're here at Midwest, and, you're going into winter break. So now my brain's also it's not even about the amount of time that you had. It's that you started this journey when you weren't even in school. So that's
Right.
that's to me, and so, I'm confounded at what was kind of like the process, when you got to break. Because you obviously, you had to probably have some pre-planning just in case this happened, which it did. But maybe you could talk about some of the efforts with the community. I'm sure you use social media. I'm sure you use a lot of those things. So maybe give us a little bigger overall picture of the kind of that outreach.
Yeah. So as far as like for the fundraising, the first thing we did was we set up like an online platform for donations. And that was set up like the very next day. So like Monday, the 23rd. And by the time we got to like December 26th, there was already close to $20,000 donated. And that's when I kind of went, okay, I think this might actually happen. And they were all like $50, $100, $500 donations, but there were several donations. And so I was like, okay, this is actually going really well for 3 days out or 3 days into this. And then we reached out. We had some of our administrative team here at the school. We reached out to some of the business leaders, and then of course our band booster parents, reaching out to their businesses, everything that they had connections with. So then we started getting, a little bit bigger donations from some businesses. Hunt's Brothers Pizza came through huge for us. They called us, I don't know, it's probably like the 28th, and was like, we want to make a donation, but we need to write the check before the new year. So, it was a couple of those things too, wanting to get their tax write-offs in, but they also supplied us with a 100% fundraiser. Like they donated pizzas. And so we had the students sell like tickets for pizza, and it was 100% profit, which no fundraising company does. Nobody does that, but they did. So they donated quite a bit of money to our cause. And then, another 10,000 from this company or 5,000 from this small business. And it was really all throughout Tennessee, but mostly Smyrna community or Rutherford County for sure, Murfreesboro, businesses and individuals and coming through with those donations. And we were getting kind of close to maybe like 5 days out before we were about to leave. and we were close to our goal, but not quite there.
All right.
We were just like maybe 30,000 away, which we kind of felt okay about because we had some money saved in the booster club that we could cover that last 30 if we needed to. And that's when Tractor Supply Company came in and they surprised us at school. Our principal worked this whole thing out. He said, hey, Tractor Supply is going to make a donation, but they want to like do the whole reveal with a big check and that sort of thing. And I'm not sure even we knew how much it was going to be. We were like, oh, okay, $10,000. That'll be great. And they came in with the $40,000 donation. And I was just blown away. I could not believe it that a state company, a local company came through for us like that.
Yeah.
Well, that, and kind of the lesson here is like, because, the fundraising is only a little bit of this conversation because, as a band director, anytime you go on any trip, you're thinking, how do we go to raise this funds, and especially as soon as you start putting states in between your state, the price is going up and you're wondering, and the zeros start to add. And when you get to those 6 digits, you start to go into that panic. Well, what if nobody raises? So what kind of impact did this have on the band program? Like, and the students, kind of speak from the culture of the students for a little bit.
So I mean, again, it was interesting because from a cultural standpoint, part of the other efforts that we did, for the fundraising part of it, of course, is, we did create that program overview guide so that parents could help, send those out to businesses. Cause there might be just some people that are not really familiar with our band program or band in general. But then part of the thing that helped change with the students is all of the media. That was the one thing that we were not prepared for in the sense of that. I mean, we knew we would go, there'd be some local coverage, but the interest in it was what we weren't expecting there to be that much interest. And so, overnight our leadership team, this whole thing too, when we made the announcement and then we were able to meet with our student leadership before, for the very first rehearsal after break, we had to call the students in a little bit early from break, which, they were all about it, but a lot of the buy-in for all of this rests on our student leadership. We have an incredible student leadership team, and we really try to teach about the idea of putting the program before yourself, and that's something that's so, it's difficult for anybody, but, especially in those teenage years, especially when you're in high school and you're trying to prepare for college and you're trying to figure out what you're going to do for the rest of your life, so with our leadership team and a lot of our students, that trickle down lead by example really just resonated. When the donations started coming in, it changed the students because now they became very purposeful in their actions. They, without us having to ask, they started having their own sections, meet during our study hall block that we call ICU. They were meeting before school. They were meeting after school. We even had we call, in Tennessee, if it snows just a little bit, we have to shut everything down. The snowpocalypse, if you will. And, our students were dedicated, practicing out in the snow. We told them, take your instruments home because if we're not back, you're going to have to get acclimated to the cold conditions of the weather. And what better way to do that than, by practicing. The other part of it too, is the students were actually able to do a lot of the interviews with the media. And it was great being able to help our students to think about what's the best way to handle questions and to kind of think on the spot. Cause a lot of times our students don't get that experience. Sometimes the cameras or the microphones can make them nervous. And so we wanted to talk about, that kind of aspect of how do you market and represent your band program.
Well, just as I know, it's always trying to teach the students, no matter where you are now at this point representing your school, your community, you're representing, your directors. That is an important lesson that all students need to learn. I know we have all the YouTube comments going from the kids, and that again, that is part of that lesson and the other thing is part of that pride of being that. And I also want to keep going on the story because the fundraising part was kind of fun, but my focus also is on the fact that how amazing your band is, and us band directors always looking for that magic recipe of, well, how do you put your band together? What are some of the secrets to success? But before we get to any of that, though, talk to us about when you hear y'all planning for the inauguration parade, and yeah, they put it indoors. And so, and I know there's, and so, and I know a lot about that, but although that was disappointing, I am sure there's more to this story and the experience. And, let's continue the story, shall we?
So,
yeah, go ahead.
So the inauguration was on Monday, the 20th. The band was going to drive up via bus on Sunday, the 19th. But Michael and I were required to be at a briefing meeting for the parade on Saturday, the 18th. And we couldn't bring the band earlier because our mid-state clinic band was happening that weekend. And we had several students in the mid-state band. So they had their concerts all day Saturday. So we had to wait to bring the band until Sunday. And on that Friday afternoon, that's when all the reports start coming out, so you see it on the news and on your Twitter and everything like, oh, inaugural moved indoors. I'm like, oh, okay, he's going to take the oath indoors, whatever. Okay, then inaugural parade moved indoors. And I was kind of like, okay, well, it's Capital One Arena. It's a hockey stadium. It's a hockey place. That's a big ice rink. The band could go out there. I'm kind of already visioning how this might work. And then Friday evening, Michael and I are on our way to the airport to take our flight for the meeting the next day. And we get the call that our performance in the parade had been canceled. And we're like in the car on the way to the airport. And it was, Michael got the call and it was, yes, And then he hangs up the phone and says, this is just what happened. And of course, I'm like, what do you mean this just happened? This can't be right. I'm like a million questions. He's like, I don't know what to do.
I'm processing at this point. I'm just like, okay.
I can't imagine. I just can't imagine.
All the work, all the effort, the community behind us,
absolutely,
raised all the money.
And now the rug has been pulled out from under us proverbially. And it was just, so we're like, kind of like, all right, so now at this point, we're in her car and we're like trying to get to the airport, but we don't even know where we're going at this point. So we're like, pull over. And so she starts calling our tour company. So of course, we did our travel with Gateway. Like I said, we've been traveling with Gateway tours for years and they were just fantastic, but she's on the phone with them. I call our graduation coach, who kind of been helping us kind of project manage this, Clayton Ledford. And immediately it was like, we have no idea why. There's people in the parade office are not returning phone calls. We were just kind of like stunned. We didn't really know what to do. And then at that point, none of this is refundable. So,
right.
So somehow, yeah. So at this point, we're just kind of like,
the buses are paid, the hotel's paid, everything's paid.
Yeah. We're supposed to be leaving the next day. So at this point, we're just kind of like driving around Nashville in silence, just trying to process, trying to contemplate next moves, and at that point, we're just kind of like, you know what, we're taking the band anyway. At this point, what do we got to lose? If we're playing in the back of a Burger King parking lot in Washington, D.C., this is the best that it's going to get. What, these students have earned this right. We'll figure out what the performance venue is going to be. We're going anyway. And then we kind of thought like, okay, let's just go to the parade briefing meeting anyway. Let's figure out, like, we were thinking like maybe the officials hadn't really thought this through because we weren't the only band in this predicament, obviously. And so we wrote an email basically to the parade inaugural committee and to the chiefs of staffs of our Senate leaders, our congressional representatives in Tennessee, basically saying, hey, please don't cancel us from the performance. And we sent an email that said, hey, we've got an idea. We'll help volunteer. We don't need to be paid for anything. Like, we're from the volunteer state. Like, you can get all of these bands in less than 10 minutes. Like, let us help you. Like, we don't care. Tell us where to meet. We'll stay up all night if it has to. Because, for, like you said, this event single-handedly galvanized our community in a way that we would have never expected. So, yeah.
So also what was happening kind of unbeknownst to us was our principal was hard at work. He was contacting our congressmen, both Haggerty and Marsha Blackburn, and was very much advocating for the band, which is Wow.
I know you get choked up because
A little bit.
Yeah, I mean, because again,
Because that doesn't happen everywhere.
no, and it's that
And
advocacy piece
yeah,
of it.
and I've worked at schools where the principal would have called me and said, "Oh, I'm so sorry that happened," and then just left it at that. But he was on it. He probably spent the whole night and half a Saturday, talking and even texting with congressmen, and Marsha Blackburn for sure. I understand it even went to Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, who's not even from Tennessee. And so it was just so incredible to see our admin rally around us, because it was special, because not every principal will do that for you.
Right. And so, yeah, so we were just, like I said, so at that point, we fly up there. We actually get into, we were like, let's just crash the parade meeting anyway. I mean, what do we have to lose? What are they going to do? Throw us out?
And they did.
And they did. We did get past security though. But we saw one of the other bands, from Middleton High School that was there. And so when we found out that they were still in the lineup, we were like,
oh no. Yeah.
So we started like, we kind of rallied behind. We ended up walking to, we thought, okay, if any of our congressional staff, because it was on a Saturday. So,
right.
Most of the congressional staff's usually not in their offices at that point. But I mean, here we are in Washington, D.C., the frozen tundra at the time. And we just literally walked from that part over to our congressional representative offices with the doors closed. We did get past the security in the building, but the doors were shut. Nobody was home. And it was just like,
reality starts to set in.
So like, this isn't happening. So we waited until the very last second on Saturday to send out the new itinerary. And,
so we spent the rest of the afternoon planning a new Monday, basically, for Inauguration Day, planning new activities and
trying to figure out what we were going to do for the students and where we were going to maybe get a performance in, because, Washington, D.C. is all shut down, a lot of security and everything. So it's not like you can just kind of show up and play wherever you want. You got to pull permits and you got to do.
Although that was my idea.
Yeah.
I said, let's just go to the National Mall and get them off the bus and, and play. By the time anybody tells us to say we can't be there, we would just leave.
Right. Exactly.
Because we'd be done. But
yeah.
Fortunately, it didn't have to come to that.
Yeah. So anyway, Saturday we hit the all-time low. I'm just, I'm not gonna lie, I had my meltdown. I felt like a failure. I just, it's like, okay, this is a big dream. This is a big thing. We've lost credibility with our community. We've lost, if we ever try to do something big like this again, there's always going to be like in the back of their minds, or, you went to the inaugural and we kept joking. I was like, well, the asterisk isn't that bad, right? Like, I know, right? Yeah. So anyway, and so Sunday morning rolls around and, we have what you don't see here is we have such an incredible team, our staff. It's not just us, but we have a wonderful percussion director, Alexis Derryberry, who, has helped us from day one with our percussion section and also helps handle our social media.
She's on faculty here at the school.
Yeah. So she's basically like a third band director. And then right on our same campus, we have two outstanding middle school directors, Brittany Gerald and Elijah Gilmore, who again, create such great students. And they were, they helped bring the band up, they were part of our team. And so we were able to, rely on them to get the band up, and they, kind of helped manage that day. But, they get the band up on Sunday, everyone's in decent spirits, as you'd expect. You've been working hard for this moment, and now this moment doesn't get to happen. And, it's probably about 11. No, it's probably it was closer to 12 noon when I got a call from an unrecognized number, when all of a sudden it was the parade inaugural committee stating that we had been put back in the lineup. Reinstated, in fact, was the words used. And we needed to be in DC by 1:30 for our parade briefing meeting and to pick up all the student credentials. And so literally I'm like, okay, we're there. And literally I get off the phone and Debbie's my first call. I was like, Debbie, where are you?
I was walking the streets looking for a coffee shop.
Yeah.
I was out in town.
You need to get back to the hotel now. And then we called our gateway tour managers, Angie Vall and Matt Perlogger. We met in the lobby and we're they had just signed contracts with what we were doing on that Monday. Now we're adjusting the itinerary again. And so they're like, okay, you guys go get changed. We'll call the Uber. We've got this whole taken care of. We're heading down there. And yeah, it was amazing. Just, this whole thing that almost didn't happen, then it's happening.
How did it, how explain the change in your mood and just like your own personal drive?
Okay, well,
I'll let you go first.
we went to, it was like excitement, of course, right? We're super excited and a little bit rushed because we're trying to get ready and we know we have limited time to actually get to this briefing. So it was almost like an oh my gosh moment the whole time. Like, okay, and like trying to plan, like, what do we need to ask? Indoor, blah, 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 the whole thing. And but pretty much I went right into band director mode, like thinking about the performance, prepping the kids. In the briefing meeting, they were really good. Craig I think his name was Craig, with the U.S. Army, was a part of the inaugural team, was really good about, okay, now the tunnel's only 10 feet wide and you're only going to have 15 feet space to march. So you need to be in a 4-man front, 2-step interval. I mean, they pretty much, like, he knew what he was talking about. So I'm immediately like, okay, but we've got the band set up in a 9-man front for the streets of DC. And so now I'm like, okay, now I got to replan how we're going to organize the band and how, our setup and everything like that. And we're still just like,
we're stunned
and things are moving. And I'm like, when's the band getting here? So I keep texting the buses because they're still on rate.
Because the kids at this point have no idea.
And they don't even know.
We've not shared any of this with them. And then, while she's doing that, I'm thinking about, okay, now I'm talking to Dr. Harrell and Mr. Ledford. And I'm like, okay, we're getting press releases ready. We're getting the communication part ready. We're trying to make sure, like, this obviously is a big moment. And, because, we weren't getting to play and now we're getting to play. And so, we're trying to figure out, that end of it. While, she was kind of taking care of the actual band logistics. So once the band got up, they arrived about, 7:45. They were like right on schedule. It was like super awesome. They gather in the hotel, they get set up, they get checked in and everything. And so we meet as a band family for the first time, it seemed like, because we hadn't seen them in a while, just because, we'd had to take some time off.
Had to travel up earlier.
Yeah. And you could see that the students, they were, how would I say, they were solemn, I guess, if you were, stoic maybe is the right word. But, we kind of talked to them about the fact that, you have to be resilient. Life is going to throw curveballs at you. You have these obstacles, and, so how you deal with it, how you react and how you respond is just as important. When life gives you these setbacks. And, my principal, was standing there too. And so, we had talked about, we felt like, because he is such an avid supporter, we wanted the kids to hear it from him. Kids at this point think, like, okay, we're going to talk about our Saturday schedule, or our Monday schedule, and how it's all going to change. And Dr. Harrell, where we're going and
our new performance or whatever.
Dr. Harrell kind of chimes in and kind of talks about we're going to talk about the change to the schedule. And then, he has these words of inspiration. I mean, it couldn't have been better written if it was Aaron Sorkin, it was amazing. And so anyway, he breaks the news to them, and it's kind of like this weird, like 2-second delay and it's like the kids are processing it. And then again, I mean, I think they started screaming and they were cheering and crying. I mean, it was like just, I mean, again, it was just a moment of just like this just energy that just came over. And so, going back to the original question, that's kind of, it charged us, and so we were really excited for the kids. We were really excited for the parents. And then we were like, all right, so we have this pizza party for you guys. And guess what? In 1 hour, we need you to come down here and we need you to bundle up, because guess what? We have to rehearse, because everything that we worked on is now going to be completely different and completely changed. And so the students, they got all dressed up in their winter attire, if you will. And we found a parking garage that was adjacent to the hotel. And so now you have the whole Stewarts Creek High School band, all of our staff, a lot of parents or whatever. And so now we're in this, Washington, D.C. parking garage, if you will. And now it's like, all right, we have to basically teach you what the new format's going to be, what the new ranks, the new lineups and everything. And
ranks and files. And
yeah. And Debbie, just like I said, just went to town to make sure like everything looked great, that they had everything that they needed. The students were like pin drop silent. Everything was like purpose driven. You know, it was something that came over them. Like they just, I mean, they've always been good students, but like they grew up in a way that you don't expect, you know. They really came through on that rehearsal.
Are you ready for my controversial statement here? Because this is band director me stepping in here. You know, we always talk about what the impact school has on our children and all those things. And I'm here to say that there are moments in life that have more impact. And I am sure for all of your students, just that trip alone is something they will never forget.
Oh, yeah.
And so, let's go to the performance and maybe talk about, Patrick's been putting up the pictures going on the screen. I'm putting up some really nice comments, by the way. But now that you've done this. Oh, by the way, how many kids were in the garage? I was curious how many students you had on the trip.
Yeah, it was 152.
Yeah, that must have been amazing for that garage. Did you do any playing in there? I'm sure the echo was.
No,
it was all singing,
and no instruments.
No instruments.
You could have figured. I'm kidding. But talk about what you ended up doing performing. And Patrick maybe put up that picture again because it kind of makes me feel like I'm in the moment. Because and I think when you're on the national stage, couple things. Here you are on this in your brain. What's a national stage? And then when you're living it in the moment, the world becomes so small. All these things that you see on TV, people, they're right there. I mean, just look at that. And for our listeners who are listening, we're looking at a picture of the inauguration, and it is just you see the Stewarts Creek Band and just a sea of people. And I can't imagine the amount of pride, what's going through your head. But talk about what you ended up performing, and maybe a little bit from the experience of the kids and your own personal experience.
Yeah. So in the briefing, they were like, okay, we're going to march out. You're going to stop in front of the president. So it's going to be a standstill performance. And I went, yes, as a band director, knowing that they're going to sound great on a standstill rather than just marching through. So it's going to be a standstill performance. Play your one song that you were playing in the parade. They said they were like 2 minutes, and then cadence out. So cadence in, play your song, cadence out. And we're like, okay, we could do that. I got that. We got that. And so our piece was like a medley. It had like My Country 'Tis of Thee at the front end with a 8-measure little drum break, and then Your Grand Old Flag was the second half of the song. And so we got out there, and I mean, like just that walking through the tunnel onto the floor. And the space opens up, and we had been able to get in there to see the space. We did a walkthrough with the officials to say, your drum majors will stand here and this, that, and the other. But for the kids to kind of like see it in their eyes as they kind of walked in, the drum cadence started and they start marching in, and like everybody's applauding. And this is by far the largest audience our students had ever performed for. And just the crowd being into it and energetic. Band director me got a little nervous when we started the Grand Old Flag part. The audience started clapping along. So I immediately tightened up, because we all, as band directors, know when the audience starts to clap along, they don't like to stay in time. And so, but no, there was no issues there with phasing or anything. And yeah, our drum captain, shout out to Drew Meyer. He took all of our instructions perfectly as far as marching in to the roll off and then straight into the cadence to march out. I mean, everything went really well.
Yeah, there's a comment on the screen that I think is important. The experience was truly once in a lifetime for our students, but more importantly, and where band director me comes in, is the life lessons learned through this will be felt for years to come. And I think that's, the culture of life lessons on its own, because you don't go on these trips for the life lessons. You do these, you do all these things because we want to share our music. We want to share our band program and all these things. But it's not what you go into it for, it's what you get out of it. And so, what are some of the things that your students got out of it? You got out of it, your community got out of it. And like I said, I'm so happy. Oh, I did have a question before we answered that one, which was, can you talk about what the security was like? I can't imagine what security was like going into that building. And what did the kids experience on some of that security?
Yeah. So the initial security screening for the parade, we ended up taking buses over to the Pentagon. And so now we're in the Pentagon parking lot, and it's, we had prepped our kids about, like, you're dealing with Secret Service and the United States military. Like, it's yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am. If they ask, like, we're not making small talk, we're not messing around, because, we have a very finite amount of time that we need to get through security, because there are other groups besides us. So they go through and of course they search the buses. You have to take all the equipment off the bus, and then they go through a thorough inspection of the buses, and then you go through these tents, and it's sort of like being at the airport, but a little bit more intense,
Right.
because band uniforms have metal buttons on them, and so but we were required to make sure that every case had, like, the student's tag on it. The students, of course,
Name,
themselves,
address.
name, address on the instrument tag, so they knew this instrument went with which student in case there was a question. All of the students and everybody that were with us had Secret Service credentials that we were wearing at all times, so that they had our pictures on them. And so again, that process was actually way more streamlined than I was expecting it to be. And like I said, I think a lot of it had to do with, the team that was doing all of the inspecting. They probably do this professionally all the time. But then I will also give, again, to our students, just, being prepared, having everything ready, not being right in the moment, being present, and making sure that, the I's were dotted and the T's were crossed. Once we got past that, then, they were great. They gave us like a sack lunch for all the students and bottled water and that sort of thing. And then we were able to take that over to the Capitol One Arena. We had a police escort from the Pentagon to the arena. So all of the streets that were closed
yeah.
were now gallivanting through, like,
Straight shot.
yeah, gallivanting through downtown DC, going the wrong way through streets. But, we had a police escort, and then again, as we get off and unloaded, again, a very small amount of time to get 4 buses unloaded and then get into our holding area. And once we got past that, it was pretty easy at that point, once we had been past security and we'd gotten into the arena.
Yeah.
The experience inside the arena, though, for those that might be wondering, to me, to all of our band director friends, felt like a regional Winter Guard or Winter Drumline show, where there are people all over the place, and there are units in the hallway, but with Secret Service. That was the other thing, And so I think one of the shots that you'll see, it looks like we're in the back of a garage or something, or like a commissary, and you see the band is in a row, and Debbie is kind of working with them. And, so we're all in this, like, the visitors locker room, but we're like, okay, we need to be able to that's the shot right there. Yeah. We need to be able to let the guard spin. Like, can't, we need, and, like, I don't know, kind of bring the students just so we can practice everything that we learned in the parking garage.
Yeah. Make sure they remembered what order they're in for their lineup.
Yeah. Just trying to go over those things. And so, of course, they didn't really say that we could do that, but we kind of told the students, we found this area, and again, this was on the presidential side. So the whole presidential reviewing stand is behind where Debbie is standing there in the actual arena. So now we're like walking with the band past, like, the Secret Service people, and they're the ones that are, like, really super serious. But we were like, all right, kids, eyes up. Just everyone keep it tight. Let's just look like we belong here. So we just walked right past them. We had our security badges on, but we didn't make eye contact. We just looked like we were supposed to do it. I guess maybe they thought we were like the Rockettes or something. I have no idea. But we're like, so we're there, and, like, we're going over, Debbie's going over all of the stuff that we, needed to remember and everything. And then, all of these famous politicians that you see, in the news and that sort of thing, are just walking by with their handlers and their delegations. And, we didn't get kicked out. They were kind of monitoring. They were like, hey, just to let you know, the vice president's motorcade is going to be here in about half an hour. So, and we're like, oh, we're good. We only need like 10 more minutes. But it was really interesting just to see, like, the students not react to, I guess, a lot of the famous people that you see on TV. I mean, we passed by Elon Musk at one point, and we were just kind of like, okay, well, that's Elon Musk. We got stuff to do. Let's go. It was great, And so, like I said, from a security standpoint, the other thing that I'd also mention too is that we were very, very cognizant of a lot of our parents' feelings on safety and security. because originally when we were thinking that we were going to the parade, we were thinking like, okay, we need to have a safety plan in place for the students, and in today's age, if the unthinkable were to happen, we would not want to be back on the news for not having a plan or, not being able to coordinate a safety plan for the students. And so one of the things that we were very adamant about was, which you don't see here in the picture, each of the students had a waterproof cell phone pouch that you would use, like if you were going to the beach or something like that. And,
because we wanted to make sure the students could have their cell phone with them.
Yeah.
But the band uniform really doesn't have the pockets for it.
Yeah. So they had their cell phones and
right,
exactly. Yeah. And, and then we printed off like a security card that had like our hotel information, the band's Gmail phone number, and our rendezvous points in case we got, split up or separated. But luckily none of that happened and then when we moved inside, it was a much, easier as far as control on the security part of it, for sure.
And then, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, because, what do you think now that, you've lived through this entire experience, you've got your band program, you get to go back tomorrow. It's another great day of school. What are you most proud that you have in place for your students? Like what, and thinking back on this past experience, what, lessons learned, what are you most proud of about your students and your program?
I'm very proud of how they performed and how they looked and how they sounded and all those sorts of things. I'm again more proud about how they acted throughout the entire process. Like they knew when to turn it on as far as being serious and focused, but then also knew when and how to enjoy the moment. And my story for that is, so we go in, we march in, play the song, we march out. And at that point, I'm a little emotional, like this actually happened. We're going straight back to the locker room that we were in that was not big enough for us. We were packed in there. And at that point, the kids were all smiles, jumping up and down. They were all super excited about the experience. They knew they did a great job. The only thing missing was like the champagne in the locker room of a Super Bowl celebration. And then they all, at that, after they all congratulated each other and are just super hyped and super excited, then they got on their phones. Then they found their phones. And then they started like seeing the footage and the pictures like that either people were sending them or from the footage itself. And then it was just a whole nother layer. And so I was so proud that they were allowed to enjoy the moment, that they recognized that it was an amazing accomplishment and that it was a big moment. And I'm proud of us for allowing them to enjoy it.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah. I would say for me, one of the key takeaways, again, to echo everything that Debbie said, all of that. And I think it was also really important too, that you really don't know the impact that your program has on a community. And at our darkest time, that the adults in these students' lives, not just their parents, but our administrators, our elected officials, they came together because they believed in this. And this is one of those underdog stories where, the power of music to galvanize an entire community and the support that we had no idea. I mean, that love and that support structure that was there for our students, will always forever be the band that played the inaugural. This will be something that will have changed their lives. They are a part of history now, forever. And it's one of those things where it's so, you can't put it into words how that feels, and, tomorrow morning will come early like it does for all of us. And we'll get back to, the next thing, which will be our performance assessment stuff. But knowing that we were able to bring so many people together through the power of music and through the support of these students and in our small town here in Smyrna, Tennessee, to have this life-changing moment. That's what every educator dreams of. And hopefully our students, through their lives will learn from this, and they will learn to get behind causes that they believe in. And hopefully their children, will participate in music and the arts. And, the cycle just keeps moving forward.
Well, and isn't that what we're here for? To create lifelong appreciators of music, whether or not they have a career or not, and so here's the scary thing, folks, it has been 55 minutes already, and it goes like that. And we haven't even talked about your band program. So we should have convinced them to have you guys back on and actually talk about your band program, because
Oh, sure.
we never brought back the fact that your band is amazing, and you talk about CPA and mid-state and all those things. There's a lot there that we haven't even undercovered. So final thought, final question. You both can go. So, thinking here, our content here is based on culture, and it's obvious that you guys are proud of your band, and it's obvious that this trip was it's not even been a week yet. What is your final thought about your experience, and maybe share that final thought with us today? Maybe a little different than sharing your cultural thought, because I think it's been neat to hear the story, because there's so much in here culturally that we haven't even talked about, and we'll let some of our listeners kind of figure that out for themselves. But what's your final thought for the day, each of you?
For me, it's having faith and never giving up. For me, it's one of those things where just when we thought that everything that we had worked so hard for was not going to happen and everything was about to collapse and fall apart, that at what I would say my darkest moment, to know that so many people were behind the scenes that cared enough about the program and those students. I mean, there's nothing that can describe that for me personally. That's better than any award. That's better than any kind of accolade or anything. I mean, that really speaks volumes to our town, our community, and the support that we have.
Yeah. It's, for me, it's a bit humbling as well. As a band, we talk about excellence a lot with the students and those sorts of things. And with a little bit of preparation or a lot of change into the format, to see how well they accepted the change and rose to the occasion, was just amazing, just absolutely amazing.
Well, I hope you guys are very proud of yourself, because I feel honored to have had, this has been a great story, and what a great way to spend a Sunday listening to the story. This is, it's just amazing to me. I get so spoiled talking to all you great band directors around the country, and it's neat to learn a little bit about everybody and the things that you share. But for our listeners and for our viewers, I guess it's everyone, if you're wanting to get in contact, stewartscreekband@gmail.com. I'm not actually going to spell that one. I think that one's pretty obvious. stewartscreekband@gmail.com. As long as their forwarding is working, they can get it on their Microsoft. I'm kidding. I'm just laughing, because it always seems like when we needed things most, yay, technology. Imagine the old days when you had to wait for the letter.
I know, right?
Welcome to I cannot thank you enough for being on the show today. That was just a fascinating experience. Those wonderful pictures, and thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely.
All righty, kids. That's another show of Culture Before Content. Don't forget to catch those past episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube, and stay connected at musicforall.org/podcast. You can always get a hold of me at david.duarte@me.com. And we'll be back next week with more inspiring conversations. I'm David Duarte, your host, and I'd like to thank everyone at Culture Before Content team and Music for All for making this possible. And again, thanks to Yamaha, our national presenting sponsor for this incredible support. All right, until next time, take care, reflect, and have a great cultural week here at school.